Welcome to the Be Sound podcast. I'm Dan B. And today we have a special guest with us, Laughing Truth himself, Kip Hartley. Hey, Kip.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am just dandy. Couldn't be better.
Do you mind telling the people out there what you do and who you are and what you do?
Sure. What's the rating on this podcast, by the way?
Oh, we can go all the way up the scale.
So in a sense, it's this, is that from taking a philosophical background of the bigger issues in life, the beyond 50,000 foot view, I change people's DNA and companies' DNA to make them better and more successful, and have a track record as a personal development business real estate coach that is pretty damn phenomenal.
Yeah.
Another way to say that is I unfuck people.
You unfuck people. And how do you do that? How do you go about unfucking people?
Well, first off, there's a meta context. I mean, if you're going to dive right into it, there is a meta context that is missing in most people's lives. And let me throw it out this way. If people aren't motivated by some other external thing like God or something like that, then they're trying to find this meaning and they go, okay, so I can start a business, I can do that thing, I can do that, but there's really missing a context of why. Like, why does this matter? And what I'm doing is I'm cultivating the real aspect of our life, which is the hero's journey, and saying, you know what, put yourself on this. Where are you on the hero's journey? What have you gone through? Whether it's so that you begin to tell a story, a personal narrative that adds incredible amounts of meaning and purpose and drives forward whatever you're doing, whether it's getting a different job or whether it's starting $1 million business.
The way I see it is you're saying that it's purpose that is what drives us, right?
Sure.
And the hero's journey is a way to get purpose.
Well, I think the problem is that would be the way that people say that, and that's what I completely disagree with. Mm-hmm. It's not the hero's journey is a way to get purpose. The hero's journey is what we're actually on, all of us. And we just don't see it because we can't see the forest for the trees. So if we step away from that and then go, oh, wait a second, hang on a second, this is the hero's journey, then we can begin to see ourselves in that context, because the hero's journey is the story of mankind. If you think about every story, go ask somebody the story of their life. For the most part, people live their lives as a hero's journey. They go, well, I was in really down and I was working 4 jobs, but I made enough money and I started to go to college and then I did this and then I found this, and it's this thing. And so if that's kind of this common story that seems to be in play all the time, then how come we're not addressing it for what it is, which is that's reality that's without filters? Why are we not addressing it that way? Why are we saying this is yet just another story that's quaint and quirky when it's, definitely a lot more than that? That's why you've heard me say 1 million times that the hero's journey is not a joke to me. It's something very serious. I know you've heard me say that multiple times. Mm-hmm. So that's my theory. My theory is that if you strip stuff away and you look at it, then you go, okay, this is kind of how we are. This is the hero's journey, our journey through life.
So did you just come up with this thesis by experimenting it with, yourself? Or is this like, have you seen this? Have you witnessed this in your own life? Is that how you came up with this?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would say my life has been very, very heroic. No question about it. And the funny part is that I say that without any braggadocio or without any kind of puffery or anything, because I would be willing to bet that if people were honest and could tell their story without shame or humor or self-deprecation, that other people listening would go, that's a heroic story too. That's amazing. And they would find, we look at these great movies and everything. We're supposed to like Star Wars and all that other kind of stuff, which I don't. I would much rather hear the story of like this guy who overcame this thing and this is what he had to do on his own. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be fantastic for it to be heroic, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. Although it's interesting you brought up Star Wars, because that's like a hero's journey template.
It is, except it's, and maybe it's me, it's just that to me, the first ones kind of fit that, but I gave up after like 1985. What I mean?
Well, yes. Yeah, I agree with you there too.
So anyway, so the thing is if you were to strip that stuff away, here's my question. If you were to just take 2 seconds and look at your own life and strip everything away, would you say it's a hero's journey? Because maybe there's the bias that you have, which is that everyone always takes all the steps on the hero's journey. Maybe that's the issue, that you're thinking, oh, for it to be a hero's journey, don't you actually have to do it? you know?
Yeah.
And that's not the case. You can refuse the call, can't you?
That's part of the hero's journey, the refusal.
Yeah. But I mean, you can refuse it and die.
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that doesn't mean you were on the hero's journey. It just means you sucked really bad.
I see what you're saying.
So that you didn't do it very well.
Right.
In my life, I mean, I can tell story after story because it's just cool. And I've had an awesome life so far. Just tons and tons of stuff, whether it's like, sorting out how to navigate moving from being this brilliant kid in a brilliant environment, in a brilliant university town, living on the college campus at a young age, doing all that kind of stuff, and being moved to redneck Florida and getting my ass beat my first day down there. You know what I mean?
Oof, yeah.
Going, what have I just fallen into? What's going on here? But I think everyone's got that story, don't they? In some way or another, how they overcame their adversity and who they met along the way.
Sure.
And that's kind of what my jam is, by the way, is that, I'm trying to navigate who I am in social media, because my story, for your listeners that don't know, is having stepped away from, movies and television and video games and social media and been away from that for 25 plus years, then kind of like re-entering the world, and saying, all right, what's this about? And trying to navigate it. I realized that I have a perspective that a lot of people don't have, which is kind of neat, which is a perspective without the internet affecting it, if that makes any sense. A perspective that is not addicted to dopamine, a perspective that is maybe a little bit slower and measured. And it's been really funny because I look at all the people that I'm coaching right now. And I should put in a shameless plug. People get confused about what I'm saying, or they want to ask questions or anything after the fact or anything. Feel free to shoot me an email at kip@laughingtruth.com. But yeah, so, what I find with the people that I'm coaching is that I've sort of fallen into accidentally this role of that wizard that you meet on your third step and like, hey, let me help you unpack your life, and she'll hold a mirror up and show you what's going on so that you can operate with more authority or integrity, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. So do you enjoy being the wizard? Is that like, that calls to you?
I think, part of it is like the people that I'm coaching are killing it right now, just absolutely destroying it. Uh-huh. And that's not hyperbole. That's like, I'll show you what they're doing. And whether that's in real estate or personal development or starting their own business or whatever else, it's just really, really neat. So I don't know if it calls to me so much. Maybe it does, but I'm really damn good at it. And so I'm willing to play that role. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, you and I have talked about stuff and I've been like, hey, kick this around. What do you think about this? You're like, dude, that's helpful. You know?
Yeah. You've been extremely helpful to me in many different, facets, spiritually, financially, different things, Mm-hmm. So, you have a certain way of things that, I don't know, it just really jives with me. I came across you on TikTok, right? And it was, I don't know, you just had a certain way of doing things that I thought, all right, this is a cool guy. I want to see what this guy's about, mm-hmm. and see what I could learn. And eventually kind of formed a friendship of some kind. Yeah.
So the fun part about that is that it's like, social media to me, like, this is what's interesting is that I reached out to 3 people when I started TikTok because I was like trying to figure out, what is this? I can't even understand. And I know it's so weird because it's so obvious for people and mm-hmm. It's obvious for me now. But I was like, what is this? It's like this foreign land and people and I was like, this is so weird. And I was like, I don't really know what's happening here. And so I sent out 3 messages. One was to Brian. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, you seem authentic. You seem here. Do you mind if I ask you questions about this world that I'm in,
Yeah.
And that was pretty funny. And then it ended up that we started talking. I coached him on some big stuff, which was really great. And we did some podcasts. And then he's helped me navigate this world, which I give myself a solid C-. It's God, people are crazy how good they are at these kind of things. They're like, oh, I'm just going to build a web page and put a drip funnel and do this thing. And then I'm going to have an autoresponder thing. And I'm like, and my skin just starts falling off. I'm like, that's going to be like 6 months for me to figure that out. So everyone's got their strengths. I mean, for me, I would say it's a cross to bear, but it's also been the biggest thing for me to say, it's not a monk way. I wasn't avoiding life. I want to make sure people understand that. I wasn't anti-life. I wasn't let me bury myself in books to get to truth. It was more like, I want to get to some pretty big truths. And it's easier for me to get to those without the distractions that I see around me, like video games or television or things like that. So I'm not a purist. I don't want anyone to think I never saw a movie or something. That's crazy. But it was just not a big part of my thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds to me like you just didn't want to, not like you said, you're not being a monk, but you maybe found more value in living the here and now, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, without the filter.
Without the filter.
Yeah. Television, movie, other people's opinions, politics, reading what you see in the newspaper, all of that's going to add to this filter. And I'm like, and I'm arrogant. And I get that. I'm very, very arrogant or confident or whatever you call it. That I'm like, fuck that. I want to see what reality is directly, as close as I can get to it without any bias. How can I get there?
Right.
And a lot of that means, that's why I think it's interesting, like on the business stuff that I share or personal development or all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure it's not new in the sense that maybe there's nothing new, but it's pretty freaking new because all the stuff that I share with people, including you, isn't in any book that I've ever seen. Right.
Is that more instinct for you, or is that?
No, it's rigorous sorting stuff out. Rigorous, like, I can grab this is what I was working on before we started. Just here's my notes as I was thinking, which is people are going to be like, this dude's schizophrenic. We got to run. Okay. In developing a strong psychology means not being concerned with otherworldliness and to only be concerned with the world here and now, to be able to accept this reality and appreciate it, to rise above the morality and values that have been placed upon you and to work on what does it mean to create your own. There's no following the herd. You can look at the herd and go, yeah, that's cool, but I don't need to do that. So you develop your own moral code, your own meaning, and then you end up finding your own meaning by becoming that person that is really independent. So that's my take on things, which is very similar, if any of you are familiar with the concept of, either becoming a Renaissance man or becoming the Ubermensch or the Overman in Nietzsche's writing, for sure. I think there's some similarities of Nietzsche was definitely one of the people that impacted me for sure on this path. No question.
Yeah, it sounds like it. On a weird aside, I'll have to send you this sometime. Just I wrote a song called the Ubermensch, and sometime I'll send that to you.
No, that's great. It is my value system. You've known me for how long you've known me. Do I not seem to be authentic when I say, hey, that's kind of the way that I'm going to live. That's what I'm going to do. You're like, yeah, who you are.
Yeah, for sure. I've known you to be nothing but authentic, which is one of the reasons I think I was drawn to your style of things. Cause even in your creative ventures, like you're making a TikTok, and like I'm thinking of one in particular where you were using, I guess dolls or something like that, clay statues and stuff, and kind of made a scene, and that was very creative, and yet it was still authentically you. Like you still got your message across very authentically, and were able to speak to people, I think, in your own way. Is that something you strive to do on TikTok, or is it more like, what is your goal there?
My goal is to talk to me. That's it. And so, but to talk to me in a fun way, because I think the thing that I have, like, I'm terrifying about this. I know who I am and I know why I'm on this planet. And that makes me deadly. And I get that. And I'm not ashamed of that. So knowing that, it's, if you have something that you want to share, it's what would you have wanted to know in the right way? And so part of that means, my God, people that are like millennials and Gen Z and people, and I guess everybody maybe, is there's a defense. And if this hits with you, then so be it. But there's a defense to over-intellectualize things so that you can have an intellectual understanding and go, okay, I've got it all sorted out. But you don't. You're not even close. You know what I mean? And so for me, what I try to do is I try to take these really heady philosophical concepts, bring them down to the level where people can get them without too much brain damage. And then to say, hey, is that something that I can apply? Is that something that I can actually use right here, right now? Is that something that adds value and helps me navigate this hero's journey a little bit better. And hopefully it is, you know?
Sure. Well, it's probably a really hard thing to get people to realize that it's not just about what's up in the head, but like in your heart, and like doing and actually getting out there and doing things rather than thinking about them all the time.
That's a softer delivery to say this, which is, I don't give a shit what's in your head. Who fucking cares?
Right.
Nobody can. Because how does that manifest itself? You know, it's like this thing about, I will take someone who is disciplined, or in my words, finds nobility in the grind and understands what that means, over the person who's incredibly creative or insightful or intelligent or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So not that that's not a wonderful thing, but I mean, it's when you're thinking about creating an intentional life, to be able to do something that you don't want to do. Think about that for a second. All of these creative, really educated, all these really, really super smart people, they go, well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go paint. Oh, I'm tired of painting. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do this. You know, because for a moment they came across something that they didn't want to do. Well, what if instead they said, dude, that's part of the hero's journey. That's part of being a warrior, is to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And let's get really uncomfortable. Like, let's push the envelope so much that we become really uncomfortable. Because what's the goal of that is freedom, you know? Because the thing is if you can do all the sucky things and go, yeah, this is called doing the sucky thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you become free.
Yeah.
Another way to say that would be, you know, if you've got a comfort zone that's here and you keep pushing it over and over and over, eventually it's really weird. It goes away because, you know, this is, again, it's not braggadocio. It's just a fact. If you needed me to get up, is there any doubt in your mind that I could get up and do a 20-minute speech in front of 50,000 people right now? Like, with no warning. Of course I can.
Right.
Because I'm free. You know, I'm like, I don't care. What's the outcome? It doesn't matter, you know? Or shoot someone if I had to, okay? Or deliver a baby, or deliver a speech, or speak languages, or travel the world, or fix a car, or anything. I want to be able to be free to do all of those things. And part of that means not to get locked into our rigidity of who we think we are, which might be an illusion. So that's a little heavy.
It's heavy. It kind of leads me to like think about the spiritual side of things, where how do I want to phrase this? So on the spiritual side of things, when you Sorry, Kip.
Dude, that's not lunch. It made you all stupid and slow. That's
dude, I ate something that I shouldn't have ate, man, and it's like it's getting to me a little bit.
Now your brain's all IQ 70 and falling.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, do you want a radish?
I wish I would have ate radishes instead of what I had. But
well, I'll tell you a story while you're figuring that out.
Okay.
I'll just tell you a story about me on a Zen retreat. So I went on this 5-day Zen retreat in Florida. And the person that was kind of the guy was Sun Sanin. And he is he's dead now, but he was a realized Zen master. So, and this is me. And you can imagine this, because I was like, all right, I'm going to go through all this and then I'm going to stitch him up. That's British for, I'm going to fuck with his head. I'm going to get into his head and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to test him. I'm going to break this guy and see what happens. Now, I'm a lot older and maybe it's slightly more mature, not much, but you can get that that's a really stupid thing. So anyway, I go through this thing and it's hardcore. It's a Zen retreat. So you're doing like meditation for, I think, like about 14 hours a day, something like that, either walking or sitting. So it's pretty hardcore and not a lot of liquid the whole time. You're drinking like 4 little cups of tea per day or something like that. It's pretty brutal. So they have all the group meetings, and I'll tell you, this is a 2-part story. So the first part is, in these group meetings, he's got this like wooden stick that's like, I want to say it's about 1.5 feet long, and it's got all these knurled markings on it and everything, and he's gesturing as he's talking with it and all the stuff. And for whatever reason, my brain was like like this, like following the stick around as he's like waving around. And then it was like this non-duality thing where I was like, okay, I am the stick and the stick is me and I'm seeing this. And it was such a really cool thing. And then when that snapped out, I was like, you know, I bet that stick has been with this guy all around the world for like 25 years. And what an interesting thing that's just a stick. And that's kind of funny. So I'm going to tie back into that story in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So we go and we finish up the 5 days, and then it's your chance to speak one-on-one with this guy, right? And so I go in and I meet with him and I do all that kind of stuff and everything. And then the thing's over and I'm driving home in the car, and here's me driving home in the car. And I'm like, all right, I got to process through that. That was interesting. And I'm like, fuck, I forgot to mess with him.
Oh,
Totally forgot. I'm like 5 days and I forgot to mess with him. And I thought about it a lot, and I'm like, because I don't know how much is woo-woo and all that. It doesn't matter. But It was like, this guy just had a nice way about him, and going in and talking, it was much easier just to go talk. I didn't really, and I was so set on it. Like even right outside the door, I'm like, I'm going to trip him up this way. I'm going to do this. And then I go in and it's like, all right, I guess I'm in his world because I just completely forgot, which is funny. So I thought that was kind of cool. Back to the stick. All right. So then he's leaving and I'm leaving, and I'm sitting in my car just kind of thinking, and he's getting ready to go to the airport. And so I see him on the balcony and he's getting his stuff together and all that, and someone's going to drive him to the airport. And then I see him and he's gesturing with the stick again and everything. And then he starts walking down the steps, and then he stops and he takes the stick and he just tucks it into the woods. And all it was a stick that he had found, you know what I mean? And it didn't have any of this meaning, all the stuff that I attached to it, which I thought was a great example of Trungpoch. I'm massacring the name. Trungpoch talks about spiritual materialism. And I thought that was kind of a funny thing. So I went and found the stick because I thought it was really funny as, me being the absurd one. Like, I thought this was so important. And I put all this in. And the question is how often do we do that in life? How often do we make a conversation more important than really was? How often do we trick ourselves and self-deceive ourselves into falling in love with someone who really we know we should never have been with? How often do we lie to ourselves? How often do we self-deceive about common choices or things we're doing in our careers? So that's kind of a heavy thing. That was the message that I thought about. That is just like, okay, that was me adding a filter that wasn't there. Me telling this story that had no basis in reality. Pretty funny.
Yeah, it is. And I think that is very common. I think it's very common that we all create these narratives in our head and try to live them out, even if they're not true. And a lot of times they're not. They're just narratives.
I do know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like,
I'll tell you the most dangerous one of all, if you want my opinion.
Yeah, go for it.
In the belief that I follow, your true self, if you want to call it that, whatever word you want to use, is really the one that was formed up till the age of about 6 and all that. And then to start navigating life, to go through, you begin to have to learn how to wear these different hats. Like, oh, well, this is I'm a good child hat. And this is I'm a good brother or sister. And this is I do this. And this is this. So there's all these roles that we play. And the biggest tragedy that I see in my current life is people seeing these roles and believing that they're reality, believing that that's actually who they really truly are. Mm-hmm. And that's sad because most of these roles are designed for us to get an object, to get a thing, and then when you begin to believe you're that role, and this is probably going to go over a lot of your people's heads, and if so, I'm sorry, but when you begin to believe you're that role, then you stop thinking about objects as objects like cars and everything, and people become objects. How can I have the right wife, the right son, the right daughter? And instead of letting it be who they actually authentically really are and accepting them that way, we begin to push this narrative to make that object, to hammer it into something that is okay in our mistaken egoistic ideal.
I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that. One of the biggest things that it kind of was a light bulb moment for me was when I decided that why is not important, right? Like, because why is just a narrative. And it's kind of important because it's like, well, why can give you purpose or something like that. But yeah, exactly. And it's not, the whole thing about why is it just is a narrative. It's just one perspective on something. And
that's why I'm not a fan of the traditional therapy that way, because if you're trying to figure out why you do these things, there's an implicit argument that if you know why you do these things, that you'll be able to change behavior. The behavior. But that's just never been true. That's not necessarily true.
Right.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. What's more important is to say, okay, whether it's because I had early childhood trauma, or mommy put me on the potty backwards, or because I'm angry about this or that, whatever it is, what can I do right now? What action can I take? So I take much more of a hardcore behaviorist approach with the people that I coach, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having said that, I'm not a therapist at all. So there's that disclaimer.
So when you say you take a more hardcore approach, is it you're just hardcore like in the mental aspect, or?
Do you think I've been nice to you in all the things that I've said?
I don't feel like you're mean.
No, my delivery is soft. But is the message hard?
Yes, the message is hard. But for someone like me, I like that stuff. I like people being direct. So
yeah.
It's just more helpful. It's like, why dance around it? And I do it. I dance around things myself, so I get it. But yeah, you've got a decent delivery with it for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I don't dance around stuff because I'm not afraid of conflict. Conflict is part of the hero's journey. We sit there and here's another point. Check it out. So we spend all of our life doing these things because we want to be more comfortable. Okay, well, I just want to be more comfortable. I want to make sure I've got my retirement savings and I want to make sure I've got a nice house and da-da-da-da-da. And yet, I can ask those same people, when did you grow in life? Was it comfortable? And they go, actually, no. It was when everything was lost and there was no hope. And then I had to find something. I'm like, oh, like the hero's journey. Got it. Okay. So my point is that it's the striving and the conflict and all that. In my group that I lead, there's sort of the statement, which is, if there's no conflict, there's no battle. If there's no battle, then there's no victors or losers. And if there's no victors or losers, then there's no story. There's no narrative. There's nothing to tell. There's nothing that will survive you, because for me, all you have is legacy. All you have is the stories people are going to tell about you. And honestly, it's probably my biggest source of pride and happiness in my life is that I sit there and I think, there's a lot of people that don't like me, and that's cool. But also, I think everyone that has met me has gone away going, God, that guy's weird. But my life has somehow changed. It's better for having met that person. And that makes me happy. Sure. So you like the impact that you're making? Sure. I don't do it for that, but that I certainly like it. Yeah. Okay. Ask me why I do it if it's not for the impact. Okay. Why do you do it if it's not for the impact? Because I don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. It's a burning coal stuck right there that I can't swallow down. I can't spit out. It's just there. And that's how it is. I can't not be that way. And that's not even on purpose, right? That's just who you are, is what you're saying. It's why I am. It's why you are. Yeah. Yeah. I'm the thumbtack that somebody puts in the chair as you're about to sit down. That you sit down, you go, whoa, what? And you go, yeah, motherfucker, wake up. Don't miss your fucking life. What are you doing? What the fuck? And they go, dude, you put a thumbtack in my chair. I go, right. You'll thank me later. And that's how it goes. That's a helpful thumbtack. Yeah. Well, people hate it for sure. Yeah. But that's my point. Just growth always sucks. You know what I mean? And there's a great example of that, which is Robert Nozick, who's one of my superheroes because this is what's badass. He's a philosopher and then jumps over to political science, writes one of the most important books, and then jumps back into philosophy. Like, yeah, that's cool. I'm going to master that. And then I'm going to go back over here. Because John Rawls wrote a book in, I think, 1974 called The Social Theory, John Rawls. And it's basically his argument is that if we're to make a society, we should pretend there's a curtain in front of us. And if we don't know where we're going to be placed on the set, we might be very poor, we might be very rich. If we didn't know, then we would want to make it the role of government to make everybody be equal. Well, Robert Nozick, who wrote a very good book called Anarchy and Utopia, talks about the fact that that's not how it is at all. The goal should be to get out of everyone's way and let them manifest their life. Well, where I was going with his thing is he did a thought experiment, which is to say, you're in a vat and the vat's got IVs hooked up to your vein. So imagine this, if you will, for a second. And it's feeding all that, but it's also taking control of your brain. And the first day that you're plugged in, you have the best day of your entire life in every way.
Okay.
And then the next day is even better than that day. And the next day after that is even better. And every single day it gets better and better and better. And you're lying there in a tank experiencing absolute incredible bliss because every day is better than the next. The question is, do you do it or not? Now, most people obviously say, no, I wouldn't. So would you do that or not? Lie in a tank?
Would I be able to get out someday?
No, it's your thing. It's better and better each time. Do you choose that life?
No, probably not.
All right. So most people say no. But then the question is why? Because fundamentally, you know the hero's journey. It's embedded in your soul. No, because happiness isn't that. Happiness is striving for something that matters. Not sure if you're going to be able to complete it. Doing something that makes a difference. Hustling, working your ass off. Maybe you'll fail, but there's stakes, and then you pull it off. That's happiness, not sitting in a warm bath full of rose petals.
Right.
So why the fuck are we so scared of conflict when I've just defined that? How do we get happiness? Conflict, adversity, trials, tribulation.
Sure. Well, I mean, people don't even want to be uncomfortable these days. I can't tell you how many people I've tried to be like, hey, come work out with me or do something like that. And it's like, oh, no, it's hot. I don't want to do something like that. And it's like, come on.
They're anti-life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you'll have to go look at my other TikToks to see what I'm talking about with that. But yeah, it's anti-life. Because the thing is it's this thing of not seeing things. Let me say this a different way. If they are avoiding things that would cause them distress or pressure or tension, then they're certainly not on a warrior's path for sure.
Right.
Because for me, when adversity comes up, no matter what it is, I'm like this. I'm like a quiet, not necessarily prayer, but as close to a prayer as it can be. I go, thank you for getting me this chance to see, am I full of shit? Who am I? How am I going to navigate this? And the thing is everyone can navigate that after the fact and go, oh yeah, I knew it was going to be okay. And I did all this stuff and everything. But that's not really true. Normally they're like, oh my God, I was a fucking mess the whole time. And then I got lucky in it and it turned out okay.
Mm-hmm.
What if instead of doing that after, when they were in the middle of it, they said, thank you. Okay, cool. You know?
Yeah.
You know, when I know you know the story, but I'll tell people briefly, but when I had a crazy genetic mutation thing that happened that was like, okay, you're going to die. And, you know, calling my kids from the hospital and saying goodbye to them, you know, and they were like young, you know, that's one of those things. And this is the funny thing is I was like, okay, but damn it, I really like it here. It's really cool. It's really awesome. And I'm just kind of bummed. But shit, I guess that's how it is. But damn, I really like it here. That was my feeling, you know?
Yeah.
And I was kind of like making peace. And this medical assistant, he's like, don't give up. Just fight it. And I go, dude, shut the fuck up. I'm not trying to die here, you dumbass. Just saying, you know, like, fight it. And I'm like, oh, come on, dude. Like, I love this life more than you do. I'm awake. You're not. You know, so anyway, that was my...
Well, I'm glad you're still here, man. I'm glad you're still here. And
yeah, it's but I think the point is that the question that I have is with adversity, is it possible to maintain a state of gratitude in the face of adversity? Because we know in hindsight that that's the only time we grow, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So how come during it happens, oh no, I never, and then later we're like, yeah, I'm pretty cool now because I beat that thing. Come on, man. Instead, we should probably try to cultivate gratitude when we're tested as warriors, if that's something that we want to be on that path.
Sure. And, you know, I know not everybody's trying to be on that path. So do you only deal with people who want to be on that path?
In my intentional community that I run and in the people that I coach, I need to see the element of warrior for sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, because you said not everybody wants to be on that path. Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. What do you think I think about people that don't want to be on that path?
Well, it sounds to me like you think they're anti-life.
Yeah. And what do you think?
I think that they don't know, maybe, that they're anti-life. I think that they just think they're trying to stay comfortable or live what they think is a good life, which is, some easy.
Stoicism, sure.
Yeah. Do you think Stoicism is just a comfort thing?
Totally anti-life, yeah.
Huh.
Because what you've done is God is dead. So what we've done is we've replaced God with nature and then put all these God values onto nature, called it nature so we could make it sound good, and then said, I'll just live in accordance with nature. All right. Rather strip all those filters away and see what's left.
Interesting. I never thought of Stoicism that way. I mean, I relate to a lot of Stoicism, but more so just some of the philosophies of it, but not necessarily that. Because,
is your life going to be better for being measured and balanced and careful and calm? Or should you, of all people, run fucking really far and go find a girl and sweep her up and kiss her and fall horribly in love and get your fucking head broken and then your heart broken later and everything? What should you do? So the question is, if Stoicism is that right, then has it served you to get all of everything out of life and to be your maximum self?
Well, I think that Stoicism has some merits in it. Just like, most religion, right? Most religion has...
Okay, but you just dodged my question.
Okay.
Live as a warrior, get your head kicked in, get your heart broken, find massive love that you've never found, lose it later, do all this kind of stuff, create a bunch of stuff, lose it. Is it better to live that way? Or is it better to live slow and careful, which is Stoicism? So you just pivoted, which is it has some good ideas. Now that's different. Stoicism as a temporary technique to keep a perspective makes all kinds of sense. Mm-hmm. As a lifestyle, it's bullshit.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because I think that the one that's at least more satisfying is the life of the warrior.
Why would you start running?
Start running?
Yeah. Isn't that uncomfortable? Is that something?
I wasn't sure what you meant, but you meant that like my everyday exercise routine.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
Well, at first I did it just because I thought this is how I'm going to get healthy.
So Stoicism would say, well, you shouldn't really be running. Maybe just walk and maybe just do that and accept your fate and how you know what I mean?
Sure. But at the same time,
don't push yourself because you could get hurt.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'm thinking more of Stoicism as like Marcus Aurelius, where he's got a lot of knowledge in his writings. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that he was like a coward at all.
I don't think he was a Stoic either.
Interesting.
Because he's saying, I'm going to go out and I'm going to live this hero's journey and be one of the baddest motherfuckers there is. But I'm going to have a perspective about it, which is, okay, if it's my time, it's my time. That isn't really Stoicism.
Okay.
Stoicism would say, hey, don't go out and do things like go to war. That's not practical. You could really get hurt. And instead you should, why are you fighting anyway? Maybe you need to, think about it instead and have a calmer, more measured life and everything. So the irony of all of it is that now I would say Seneca, Epictetus, sorry. And by the way, all the stuff that I'm massacring, you guys can hold it against me. I'm not drawing on all this Greek stuff really well. But I don't know. Does he seem to be someone who is Stoic, or is he someone who has said, here's all the stuff that I'm doing. Here's how I'll temper it to have it just be okay.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying about there's a good balance to be had rather than just being like full on warrior or being full on Stoic. There's a good balance to have in between the two.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I still maintain that I don't see the need for Stoicism. Because if you're saying I'm going to live by Marcus Aurelius talks about this, if I'm going to live in according to nature, well, what nature did he see? He saw the nature of killing people and the nature of slaughtering and the nature. So at least he was honest about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think most Stoics later are like, oh, this is why we have peace, because we're passive and we're this, and we don't want to, we don't want to accept that violence is golden. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't dig that kind of stuff. I'm more into like I want reality. I mean, like I said, I don't care about the whys so much. I just want the reality of it as much as possible, as much as you can get reality.
So what are some of the things that you can do to get reality is to start honestly doing a self-assessment and see what are the things that are filtering between you and that reality. If you are a person who reads lots of books, go for a year without reading a book. If you see a billboard, look away. If you see a magazine article, kind of avoid it. Don't read on the internet. Don't do email.
Okay. And what,
if you're a person that is more prone towards excesses in some way and everything, go the opposite direction.
To live in discomfort? Is that the idea behind that?
Yeah. It's a way of saying, hey, these glasses are not serving me very well. I thought they were, but they're taking me farther away from reality.
And go ahead.
The concept of someone who's gone a year without reading, I might know something about that.
Well, another thing I just wanted to bring up, I know this is an aside, but one of the things that you and I do together is, warrior reads, right? I wanted to bring that up today because I've talked about it on this podcast a few times now.
Sure.
And you're the guy you're the guy with warrior reads. So
nice.
I thought I'd kind of see what you wanted to say about that. Because I've tried to explain it to people, and I feel like I don't have the best explanation for what it actually is.
Oh, okay.
And so if you've listened before, this would be a good chance to know what it is.
Sure. I'll talk about that. Here's the elevator pitch, which is really easy. And that's everybody knows the analogy of the rider on the elephant, right? So the rider is your intellectual understanding, and the elephant's your emotional center. And then you've got a forest with trees, and that's your physical surroundings. So there's many ways to approach something, which is like, if you want to lose weight, you could change the forest by not having anything unhealthy in your house. That's an easy way. But too many people are overburdened. This is this over-intellectualization that they want to understand everything and do it. And so then they get lost because their emotions are going a different direction. So if you're on a warrior path, if you're hardcore David Goggins, if you're Jordan Peterson, if you're cleaning a room and you're running and you're doing all this kind of stuff, well, there's a point when you can't maintain that 24/7. Nobody can. They run out of energy. So what we've done instead is to say, well, what do people do to recharge their energy? Well, a lot of people, 8 o'clock comes and they go, oh, I'm just going to watch television for 3 hours. Then I'm going to fall asleep on the couch and I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to bed. And how stupid is that? That they've spent their entire day building and acquiring energy only to just give it all away come 8 o'clock. So what my argument is that it's an extremely low barrier to entry to simply press play and listen. And so what we're doing is we're substituting a behavior. When you go to bed, instead of watching television, which is awful and changes your sleep patterns and all that kind of stuff, or watching your laptop or whatever, or watching porn or watching YouTube or anything like that, instead just say, okay, I'm tired, it's time for bed, and you listen to a story. And so if you can listen to a warrior story that engages your imagination and allows you to start seeing yourself that way, then the science behind it is your reticular activating system is the part that says yes, no, judge, good, bad, no, yes, no, yes, sort of is slowed down when you're going to sleep. And you can just kind of drift off and hear heroic stories. So for the person that has not followed their diet that day or has not done what they needed to do at the gym, they hear that and they go, yeah, that's right. And the next morning, it's a little bit easier to remember, oh, that's right, this is a warrior's path. Or for the person that has done it, it's like, wow, this is a way for me to have a downtime that is super productive. So for me, in essence, and now I'll give you the elevator thing, it's the lowest barrier to affecting change on the warrior's path. I cannot think of anything easier than warrior reads. If there was, I would have built it.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Because it's literally just turn it on and listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the trick part is that obviously your frontal brain is turning off and getting tired. And so it allows things to seep in and become real. And what a great way to do to reconnect with all of these amazing warrior stories all through history and to go, because look, we just went through this. Let's go through step by step. Conflict and risk is good because it allows us to grow. Okay. So if you're constantly hearing about people doing that and started to put yourself into that role, it becomes easier to take risks and to think about stuff that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So warrior reads is a way to engage with your inner warrior without having to do anything except for press a button.
And coming from a place of where I'm just editing it, right? And hearing these stories every day. You know, I just want to say, like, personally, for me, it's fun to, even in the morning, I wake up in the morning and I do these edits and listen to it. And it's inspiring for me just even in the morning. So I can't even imagine what people are getting at night by using this. You know, I mean, maybe I should try it, but it's more of a thing of like, It's just, there's a lot of good stories out there. Let me just put it like that. And they're very inspiring. And it helps me start my day. So it's not necessarily something you have to go to sleep with, but they're good either way. They're good stories. And there's so many of them.
So let's go back to the Superman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the morals and the values that I'm supposed to be told is that I'm supposed to be watching Netflix before I go to bed. I'm supposed to be reading about politics or something before I go to bed.
Right.
Or going down YouTube rabbit hole and everything. I have an idea. Fuck you. No. How about instead, if I connect with my ancestors throughout history on this warrior's path and engage in something that's real, which is, okay, this is your story, man, not theirs, your story. How do you want to live it? And I'm inspired to go, that's right, that's cool, that's awesome. All right, tomorrow morning, I'm going to do that thing that I was scared to do. And if it can help people improve their daily life, great. If it does nothing other than stopping people from watching porn or Netflix or YouTube as they're going to bed, I've won.
Right.
But it's a hell of a lot more than that.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a great project. And everyone who I've told about it is just like, wow, that's really fascinating and what a great idea. So,
well, it came from this. I mean, I'll just tell you where it came from. I'm trying to sell people on the hero's journey. I'm trying to sell people on the warrior path. I'm trying to sell people on accumulating power. I'm trying to sell people on there's this reality that you see, but there's also this reality underneath. And what if we got dirty and got down here? And how can I get people to get there the easiest way possible? And that's it. I just was thinking all the stuff, physical, mental, emotional, listening, watching. How can I get there? And finally I was like, and this is, you'll laugh about this now because you'll get it. How have we reconnected with heroes throughout all of mankind's history traditionally? Stand around a campfire and tell the story. And then that person dies and the other person says, let me tell you a story of my father's father. And you know what I mean? And we're continuing that. And that chokes me up because it's not a joke. That's exactly what we're doing. We're taking this thing that has been around except for the last maybe 400 years and we're bringing it back because it fucking matters.
Sure.
It matters a lot. Yeah. Does that make sense? Seeing it that way of preserving the oral history of the hero stories and that, does that make sense to you?
It does make sense to me. And, you know, it's kind of mind blowing to think about it, but yeah, that's almost a lost art. I mean, I've done it. I've sat around the campfire and told stories and had stories told, and those are great memories. So why not figure out a way to...
If you can stand around that campfire and tell a story without self-deprecation or without humor or sarcasm and just to tell a real story. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you the story of my father. Let me tell you the story of this and just deliver it. It's amazing. It's how we all build the glue that gets together. And right now, the part that breaks my heart is that now that I'm on social media, I'm beginning to see that, you know, these motherfuckers have a story to tell also. It's just not one that I'm interested in. I don't want to hear Cardi B. I don't want to see young girls who have been sold out thinking that their highest expression of being feminine is to sell themselves out and create a brand as a whore. That's embarrassing. It's shameful.
Yeah, it's tough.
And we all do that. So what if instead men got heroic? What if instead people got heroic? Mm-hmm. What if instead could life be a little bit better? Maybe.
Getting back to like the telling stories around the campfire and things like that, that's in what I do, like as far as a musician goes, that's also a long tradition of passing down songs from generation to generation, like old folk songs and things like that we're still doing today. You know, even church hymns and things like that. Those are all very important to music, and a lot of that's getting lost these days too. So it's, I don't know. I can kind of relate the two arts together.
I think there's a big thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think the part is the differences with the vocal story rather than just instrumental. You have a chance to actually paint a picture rather than paint an emotion, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Well, so music is generally more emotional. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. I mean, I always feel like, okay, I have this feeling, but it's sort of vague. But if I have a voice that's with it, you know, yeah, there's things that like, there is a guy, and he's just died recently, and his name is Johan Johansson, and you should look this up later. Mm-hmm. And he's got a song that I think is called either Flight from the City or Leaving the City.
Okay.
Did you know that song?
No, well, I might, but it's not ringing a bell right now.
And it's piano. And all it is like, just like with a simple melody. And it's so simple, but you hear it and you listen on headphones and you just feel this like melancholy, bittersweet, like sad as hell and everything. And it's amazing how this guy is able to put it together. I'm just arguing that it's easier to do that with words.
Oh, with words than it is with music.
Yeah.
You can tell the story more emotionally. Okay.
I mean, I might be wrong. It's just, I don't know if I could get people to understand the warrior's path by just playing music for them.
No, I get that. And really, when you put the two together, it's even more powerful, which is something that is in Warrior Reads as well. So,
yeah. But yeah, thank you for bringing up Warrior Reads. I wasn't trying to self-promote on here.
No, yeah, I didn't think so, but it's come up in the last 3 podcasts I've done, and I thought, I should just ask the guy who's come up with it. So.
Yeah, well, it was an attempt to get people on the warrior's path in the easiest, lowest barrier to entry possible. And then it was, how can you affect a change and get people to start thinking that way in the lowest barrier to entry way possible again? And that to me came from just doing a lot of writing down things and sorting it out, and then realizing what's lost is the oral tradition that we've lost. So what if we brought that back? Right.
That's so cool to know now too, because it's, I've been working on this, but I didn't know the real origins of it. So
that's funny. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool. Well, I mean, we're almost usually these things go for like an hour, but I usually ask this to everybody at the end. It's like, so the final question of the day is there anything that I should have asked you today, but I did not?
It's funny. When I go to restaurants, I said, hey, I need you to say these exact words. Would you go back to the chef and say, what's the thing that people should order that you wish they would order, but they don't? And then they come back and I go, okay, I want that, So what's the thing you should have asked me that you haven't?
Correct.
Well, you have done a good job of we've kind of gone off your topic, because I think your original topic on the one before was adversity and how to overcome it. And I think I'm going to tie that question. What's the adversity and how to overcome it? That's the question that you didn't ask that we can go back to.
Cool.
And I think I've given a perspective that adversity, we have to run through a filter, not a bias filter, but a thing that says, I know that I grow from this. And so I would encourage your listeners to say, when shit hits the fan, to reach out to the universe, life, God, whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter, and just go, thank you. Thank you for the chance to be tested as a warrior, and to say, I know I'm going to grow from this. And to maintain that throughout the trial and everything is an amazing thing, which is not to say intellectualize it and say, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm being stoic. No. Feel it for all of its pain. Embrace the suck, embrace the heartache, embrace the pain, embrace all of it fully and go, that's living fully. So adversity and how to overcome it. You overcome it the way you do everything else. What I'm just basically saying is don't turn a blind eye away from adversity. Face it head on with grace and poise and as a warrior.
Perfect. Wow. That's a great way to go out.
Cool.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Kip. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right, man. Well, yeah, we'll talk later, but thank you again.
Yeah, and people can reach out to me, Kip, K-I-P, @lifetotruth.com, or they can reach out at Warrior Reads. Check that out if you want to. You should probably are you giving people the discount thing or the free thing for the free trial?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. So,
okay.
And I'm going to have Warrior Reads and everything linked in the podcast below in the notes. So we'll do that.
You can give them the link that gives them a discount if they want to buy it. It's Spartan, 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 or they can just do the free trial and let me know what they think. And if they've got feedback, I'm always open, But yeah, we're good.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks, Kip.
Take it easy, man.
You too. Bye.
Bye.